All right, well, let's go ahead and call this meeting to order. And we appreciate LIndon coming over to visit us. And we talk fairly regularly, but it's always good to get the whole group. I know your mayor fairly well. I don't know the rest of you, but I thought it would be good to just meet and see who's who and talk about common interest. Why don't we, just to help everyone understand who's here, we start over here, and if you can just introduce yourself and
Certainly.
how you fit in.
My name is Tyler Pay. I'm the Assistant Public Works Director here at the City of Orem. Been here for 16 years.
David Spencer on the Orem City Council.
Lenny Millett, Orem City Council.
Van Broderick grew up in LIndon, or in Orem, and then moved to Lisbon. So
The
LIndon
promised
City
land.
I like that.
Nice try. Carolyn Linford, Linden City Mayor.
Steve Stewart, Linden City Council.
Lincoln Jacobs, Linden City Council.
Paul Cooley, Linden City Council.
Chris Kilpack, Orem City Council.
Jeff Lamson, Orem City Council.
Tom McDonald, City Council, and linking, I'm taking a page from your book and have your website.
I know, yeah.
Get the faces together, yeah. So thank you.
I'm Jen. Yeah.
Thank you.
Bren Bybee, Orem City Manager.
And Davey, I'm the mayor. That's good to meet all of you officially. So I think we don't have, I mean, we've got some items on an agenda. It's not like we have to go through these cut and dry. We will just in the meantime, but
Yeah, Mayor, I would love the additional staff that maybe aren't able to be at the table to also do introductions if we might.
sure, that'd be great. Why don't we just start back over there and
Brandon Nelson, Finance Director for Orem.
Steve Earl, Orem City Attorney.
Mike Brower, Chief of Police, Linden.
I'm Mark Sanderson, as Fire Chief.
Citizen.
Fly the wall.
Ryan Clark, Assistant City Manager for
Adam Kelly, the City Administrator.
Mike Florence, the Community Development Director for Juan Garrido, Public Works Director.
And make sure you roll that R.
You know. Hablo español.
And you're not exempt in the corner.
Oh, sorry, Teresa McKendrick, City Recorder, Orem.
People who want communication better.
okay. Start to give everyone an idea of who's who. All the amazing things you see on social media and everywhere else, or from that corner over there.
Well, the ones we want reported.
Yep. Maybe just to start off, we don't have to talk about them right now, but are there any areas that anyone particularly wants to make sure that we talk about in this meeting? I'll just, if they're not on the agenda, I'll put them on the agenda. You want to know any deep, dark secrets about Orem?
Makes some
Make some up.
Well, I think we should talk about the school district. Is that not on our agenda?
education.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Anything else? Okay, well, we'll just go with the flow. Let's just start out with, as far as common interest, common border, our utilities. And so maybe if, Tyler? Sorry, if you want to just talk to our utility relationship.
Does this go with the flow?
Yes.
Yeah, so on the north border between our cities on 2000 North, we have some interconnections and some vaults there where we have the ability to exchange water if needed. We're also currently working on essentially a maintenance agreement where we partner on the maintenance of the 2000 North Road. I call it 2000 North. It's your 200 South, right? Yeah. So, yeah.
We had any questions or concerns or?
I don't personally have any. We've got good relationships with their utility managers and their public works directors. We are currently still working through that agreement, and I don't have any questions, really, we're good.
Okay.
If they have any for me though, I'd be happy to.
I have a question. Last year, when we had that crazy runoff, we were all worried about flooding and everything, and it felt like Orem and LIndon really worked together. We had some barriers that were ready to go in place and help prevent that. I'm assuming we're not really having those concerns or issues this year, based on what I've seen and reading, but thank you for a good example of two cities working together and preparing for something that may or may not have been an issue, but grateful to you guys in Public Works and staff for being ahead of that. Even grateful it didn't turn into anything like we saw in other parts of the state, so.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we also share sewer connections. Some of the part of Orem actually goes all the way to the LIndon city sewer system. And then it comes down to our outfall that is there on right at the Harley Davidson shop. And then we go through a flow meter and then we kind of do an accounting of how many units are in Orem. We figure out some kind of flows and then we reconciliation with that. Stormwater is also one of the things that it comes to Orem, but then we go through we call it the main ditch, which is the borders between LIndon and Vineyard, but Orem has a big connection there for the north part of town. And also, and of course, we have the sewer treatment plant where LIndon City owns about 12.25% of the facility, and we're participating in all the capital improvements.
Okay.
Now, can I ask a question? I have a neighbor that is losing their pasture, their flood irrigation because of the canals closure. Are we, they said LIndon bought their water shares or something along the lines. I'm sure they're demonizing that. But is there what's going on with that? Can I ask that question?
Good question. So that LIndon City is one of the bigger customers for the Provo Bench water that still goes through there. We are about 75–80% of the water in the canal. We have to LIndon's interest. We have to kind of police all the water that goes through about 6 miles of open ditch canal that starts at the mouth of the canyon, and then it goes almost all the way to about 200 south Palisades Drive before it turns around and goes back up north. There is a lot of in the past couple of years, we've spent a lot of money trying to fix the canal, keep the water from exfiltrating. We had some properties in the lower side of Provo where the water was just kind of coming through the hillside, and we were actually fearing that there was going to be a landslide and lose the canal. So as part of that project, we have an opportunity to tap into the Murdoch Canal that is now it's called the Provo River Aqueduct, and make a tap. And instead of having 6 miles to police, now we only have about 2,000 feet of pipe to get a quick connection to our secondary water system. If and when LIndon starts getting 100% of their secondary water through there, we're afraid that there's not going to be enough water left to push all that volume of water to the current users, which have pastures and orchards and trees. There are some incentives out there from Central Utah Water and other water conservation organizations where they will help provide more efficient irrigation and possibly tap into the Orem's culinary water system to keep those farms going. But we're just looking after our interest to be able to deliver water safely and not waste no.
Yeah, these are the properties on Fourth West. There's a number of horse pastures still there.
Right.
There are no concerns though.
Yeah, so when the canal was used 100%, as Orem started growing and some of those farms turning water in, I don't know if you guys turn water in for water use. Now, actually, Orem Metro and Orem City are the larger shareholders, but they do not put any of the water in the canal for their use, right? You take it out of the canyon and then put it in the water treatment plant, So technically Orem already pulled their water out from the canal. Now it's kind of Lyndon's turn to do that and just sign it up.
So
So I guess they're wondering, can they have a secondary water, we don't have secondary water in our, so the culinary is quite expensive for a pasture to maintain that. I don't know if you're having conversations with the canal company of remedying those people.
We've been talking about this for years with the shareholders, letting them know this is coming, possibly. And then trying to talk to them about their options of how it impacts them. Each water shareholder, it impacts them differently. So we've been working really hard. If they come to the meetings, if they participate, if they respond to the letters and the notifications. Try to figure out the best way for them to water the property or the parcel that they have. Flood irrigation, going away, plain and simple. There's no way to sugarcoat that. It is such an ineffective way to water. But again, we've been trying to work with each person individually to see what the best solution is to them. Lots of resources have been made available, people that have made the switch over, orchard owners that are using drip irrigation. Lots of people have been sharing their expertise and the experience that they've had,
So if they're still complaining to me, they haven't been to talk to you, basically. What you're saying.
Depends.
Oh, okay.
And Van has served on as our water liaison, so he's super knowledgeable, which we really appreciate. I would love for you to share the other things. Sometimes there's a misunderstanding about the canal itself and just how much the cities have been basically subsidizing the maintenance of that canal still being in existence and the millions it would cost to properly pipe it and keep it from leaking and the evaporation. And if each water user privately kind of paid their share into that, it would probably be cost prohibitive.
Yeah, so there's two components. One, you have the canal or the ditch company, and that's your main line, if you will, going down. And all of the shareholders participate in the costs and the O&M of that. There are many laterals that go off of that each of the shareholders that receive their water off of that lateral are responsible for the upkeep of their lateral. As years have gone on, as people have sold and developers have come in, sometimes there's a lateral that might be 2 or 3 miles long that maybe there's 1 or 2 users left on it. That's a staggering expense and that's their responsibility. That's part of the agreements that they have as shareholders. They are responsible for taking care of that lateral. What the mayor was saying, that for a number of years, the canal company was really helping and kind of hiding what the true impact of that was going to be because it was being paid for by the entire canal. But that starts to become very difficult. If it's one person at the end of a 3-mile lateral that's deteriorating, and it might be hundreds of thousands of dollars to repair, that's when we're looking. Figure out a way that you can maybe use another source of water in LIndon and places that's secondary water, drip irrigation, use grants and things to try to figure out what's the best solution for you.
I'll have a chat with you. Thanks.
So it sounds like just in summary, it's an incredibly expensive way to water and to get water from point A to point B, and so that's why it's kind of being phased out, right?
Yes, and you look at that main canal, the 6 miles, it was dug a long time ago. If we were to pipe that now, probably a conservative estimate is $25 million. Could be significantly more than that. So if you have 200 other shareholders and you want to divide up $25 million, not too many people want to, that doesn't become the most economical sense. So we look at all that data, we try to be sensitive to each person. And yes, if LIndon pulls out, as Orem has already pulled out of the water, it does impact people.
Okay. Any other comments, thoughts on utilities?
And always pray for snow and rain. It's one better when we don't have a severe drought.
So the residents on Fourth West, I mean, can they reach out to you if they have not already?
They really just want to see if there's some gray water options for them. They're willing to try some of these new, go away from the flood irrigation, new for them, but go away from the flood irrigation. But I don't know. Once again, it's a Orem.
Do you know what canal company they're off of now or where they get their water?
No, it's Florida.
One's gonna be the best source.
How far north, Northwest?
1700 north probably. Do you know Steve Hughes, 1625?
So 1600.
Yeah, so that'll be on the North Union Canal. That's probably at the very end of, so the gravity side, once, right now, we're at the end of the gravity line, LIndon is pretty much the last user.
Okay.
We are almost all the way to the north of LIndon, so in order, if we take our water, in order to push the water that far north, I don't think it's gonna have the volume to, yeah.
Steve is on the board of directors now, by the way.
Okay, so he's,
So he's tuned in.
Yes, he's.
Then why is he complaining to me?
Yeah, the other big thing I wanted to bring up is the sewer treatment plant, and I don't know if you guys been updated on the cost of what that's gonna do to our utilities. It's an old plant, and we need to spend the money to invest in keeping it functioning. That's a big ordeal in the room.
Yeah, we've had a lot of discussions about it and a year and a half ago, I think is about when we adopted a new capital facilities plan for our treatment plant. That talks about $160 million worth of estimated improvements, upgrades to the treatment plant over the next 50 plus years. In the short term, what we're talking about is we prioritized all these different projects and narrowed down our first phase to about $60 million worth of projects. And our next phase on that is to look into how we might finance that. And then we want to phase in over multiple years, then associated fee increase into our sewer utility fee charges. We've been able to offset a lot of these improvements with grants in the past. Right now, we're doing what's called a water reuse project. Tyler, you can maybe share a little bit about that if you'd like, but that's been about a $20 million project, and we got about $13 million in grants for that. We will still look at doing additional grants to try and offset these costs moving forward. But yeah, it's of course a eyebrow raising number that we're trying to then take one bite at a time of the elephant. That's sort of the bad news. In good news, it's every wastewater treatment plant along, the whole Wasatch Front is seeing even bigger numbers of costs for upgrading and updating their treatment plants. So a lot of the reasoning behind it is the federal EPA regulations seem to just keep going up and up. And we have to try and keep up with those increases in regulations. Tyler, anything else you'd add on any of that?
I could speak to the reuse project if you guys want. You may or may not know what that is. Anyone need information on that? You want me to fill in on that? Yes, please. So our water master plan identified that we had a shortage of storage. We've got some big water users down on the west side of the city, namely Sleepy Ridge Golf Course. We've got our Lakeside Sports Complex that you guys also, well, that's actually a vineyard partnership down there, but we've got a big demand for water down there, and we needed to provide some more storage. We found that as we're doing this treatment plant upgrade, we can actually take a great deal of burden off of our water supply by essentially treating our effluent water that gets dumped into the lake and piping it over those large water use facilities. And so what we're doing is essentially, like was stated earlier, we're entirely culinary water. We don't really have any secondary water here in the city. This would be the first secondary water, so to speak, in the city of Orem that we're going to use specifically for irrigation on the big sports facility and the golf course down there. So that is starting construction now. We're working on that now.
Another way to look at that also is that facility, like I said, it's close to $20 million facility, but we were able to come up with $13 million in grants. So that facility will effectively reduce our water usage in Orem by about 10%.
Yep.
So if you look at 100,000 people, 10% water reduction is saving water for 10,000 people. So it's really a positive thing and you guys would directly benefit, from that.
You know,
Maybe you need less fertilizer granules on the lawns.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a good point. The other thing from what Brent said is, and this is something I think you guys would be interested in, is we've kind of put a full court press the last few years on grants. Because there's all kinds of grants out there for everything you can imagine. And like our main water reclamation facility, as far as that goes, a lot of these things are being imposed on us by the EPA. So it's not like we thought this out, they're kind of being imposed on us by Big Brother, right? And so because of that, there are opportunities to get grants for that. Pretty much everything you do in your city, there's grants out there. It's just you need good grant writers and good people looking in, and we've had a ton of success with that in the last couple of years.
I think one,
Oh, go ahead.
I think one of the last big updates we did down there was in the early part of 2000s, right, Aaron? And we worked with you all at that time to apply for some cheap financing. I think recently you've been kind enough to provide some letters of support to continue to try and go after some of that cheap financing moving forward. So grants and inexpensive financing is we are putting a full court press on that to try and make it as inexpensive as possible, for sure. Sorry, I interrupted you.
Oh, no, I just want to say, I think Councilmember Hoyt, I think Ben and Adam, we toured your facility some months ago, and it was really impressive using an anaerobic, less smell, system, and we'd love another neighboring facility to maybe have that same technology.
Nice.
Yeah, and in terms of those neighboring facilities, I mean, we've been hearing big numbers. Provo, we're hearing is staring down like 320 million, and Timpanogos like 700 million, and Salt Lake are talking about the $1 billion upgrade. So it's staggering for sure, and so we have done some amount of looking ahead and being ahead of some of these regulations. And a big part of that was this water reuse project, but there's still more we have to do.
Do you feel like they're all useful that the EPA is pushing and directing, or does there need to be some pushback from state, federal legislators?
This is the open meeting.
We've had a few education meetings in terms of the nutrients that get into Utah Lake and how this is supposed to prevent that, and then that hopefully will make Utah Lake more recreationally available and inviting. But I'm not an expert on the exact science of it. Juan, maybe you can speak to that.
A lot of the expenses, I think is more driven by aging infrastructure, where a lot of the plant was built in the 50s. So there is that factor with nutrient removal, cogeneration of methane and things like that to reuse. But what they're trying to do now are water capturing resources, so reuse, get the nutrients out. But I think the bigger expense of the 160 million is just upgrading all the
That's what's gonna happen. And that's exactly right, but there is there are these EPA regulations, if I remember right, nitrogen. I mean, they're taking it teenier and teenier and teenier and teenier. And so at some point you say, what makes sense? Unless you've got better connections than us, we just have to do it.
I mean, we all want clean water and be responsible with the environment, but you're right, at some point, that's way expensive to get that smaller increment of improvement.
And that is pushing us to a whole different level of what we've got to build. So. Okay, better move on. Any other thoughts on this? Okay, next up on our list, we got very non-controversial topic. Education.
We love kids, we're all in favor of that.
Any thoughts from the group? Because there's definitely things in play happening that will soon be imposed on us unless we decide where we wanna go, but. any
Well, I'll read
thoughts?
out, I can read out if you
Yeah.
want. I don't know how many of you were aware of the meeting yesterday that the board had. Excellent conversation, I can send you the link. I was very impressed with the way they were reviewing, they got the data dump from MTT. Went through it, evaluated the different options. In a nutshell, they're studying it over the weekend and then Tuesday, I believe, they're gonna vote what they're gonna submit to the county to have for possibilities of being on the ballot. But the thing I liked about their conversation is it was very, I mean, it was back and forth, it was quite lively. Very collaborative, very insightful from a data perspective, from the needs perspective. It seemed to be the conversations that, and plus I feel like they were giving the okay for municipalities to really talk about it too. Because it is something that impacts all of us. I appreciated how they pulled in, there were conversations about the impacts on the taxpayer and impacts on the students, impacts on the teachers, you know, all of that. So I guess my first lead into this discussion really is saying, I'm grateful these conversations are happening and that they aren't taboo to talk about. One, just for your information, towards the end of the meeting, that they were trying to narrow down the options. If you know, there's 6. Trying to narrow those down, and 3 and 4 were the 2, which one of those really impacts our municipalities. So 4 is the PG LIndon Orem Vineyard option. So anyway, that's what I'm hearing. I could add some more of things that I found out, but I'm interested to hear how others are feeling or where your conversations are. We know other municipalities are taking action.
Some have engaged Lewis Young to study, I'm sure that's maybe what you're making reference to. Lene, we haven't outsourced anyone to study yet, is right?
Haven't officially outsourced. I did see Laura Lewis down at the ULCT and UCMA meeting and just started to pick her brain on it.
Yes.
And she told me she suspected that many cities would be reaching out to her, and I said that could be a real possibility for us, but
Have you actually
pulled the trigger on it?
anyone yet in your
No. So LIndon, we have not had formal public discussions. I think we've been very keenly watching and conversing and I mean, I think one of the other things to mention is Lehigh, I understand it has been doing a formal study that should be
That's right.
getting their results here any day. And so I think the sense I got at the league was that a lot of cities were saying, okay, based upon Lehigh, how they decide they want to go, that may cause a shift in how the other cities may align potentially, or waiting to see the district's initiation of a particular recommendation, I think is important as well for a lot of people.
It was interesting in that conversation. Cole, you look like, did you listen to it?
Yeah, I was just in a school meeting yesterday.
Oh. To me, it was interesting, the different conversations, you know, there were some who were, well, this is what the survey said in these meetings. And that's, you know, where I'm gonna base it on. And others were, you know, here's the MGT numbers. And there were actually board members who said, we feel there are some things that were lacking from the MGT study. We'd like to see capital needs, so these different areas are prepared for what their needs are gonna be. So I thought it was a very productive conversation.
That is one thing that, from everything I've seen, if we run any numbers or look at anything, I mean, it's one thing to have the basic budgets and all that and figure out the kids and everything. But unless you look at the future capital needs, you're just gonna have completely skewed data, right? I mean, because we need to know, like for Orem, if we were going down this path, how many of our schools have earthquake issues that need to be fixed up? You know, if any of our biggest issue is probably fixing up our schools. And so what does that look like from a cost perspective? And then like, was it option 3 that you said was the 4
So,
cities?
3, I think 3 is like a
Three's
two-way
one visit,
split
three
with
is
Lehigh going
Three is
east.
Lehigh, all east, 4
So
is
it's either Lehigh,
subset.
yeah, I mean, we're all assuming Eagle Mountain, Saratoga's are gonna go west, that's what they've indicated. I don't know that anyone, and
I
that's
think
up
in the
to them.
next week, we'll be seeing an official,
Yeah.
vote for
Interlocal
them to go do an
Which
interlocal.
3 is Lehigh, everybody else.
I guess my point was, is if we go down the path, of Pleasant Grove or you guys, and what your capital infrastructure needs are over the next 10 years, that needs to all be put in, into the models to really understand where anyone's going.
Because it was one thing I thought was interesting is, I mean, I've had numerous people reach out to me, right? And I'll just share some of the things they said to me. There's been conversations about, the bus garages at American Fork and Saratoga. But those of us who have lived here for quite some time know that the warehouse in LIndon was a bus garage back in the 90s, right? So, but now it's a sped and warehousing facility. Those were some of the things that they've been, this, I'm gonna throw this one out. Because I was given a bunch of papers here, and these are screenshots from our nightmare of Prop 2, of the people who were against it, who were saying, we don't want the Orem only, but we would like a PG LIndon Orem Vineyard split. So, whether where you gauge that, I don't know. People, it all depends on the information where people are at the time, but I think the public is willing and getting ready to getting educated and understanding more as time goes on. So I think the narrative that 72% of Orem said they weren't in favor of that would be erroneous to be stating. In my opinion, at this point, I think that a lot has been learned in the last couple of years. Yeah.
Right, and there is, from my perspective, the conversation used to be, should we split or should we not split? And that was the conversation 2 years ago. That conversation's over. We know something's going to happen, we just don't know what. And so we hear these rumblings of, Eagle Mountain, Saratoga are looking at doing something. We hear Lehigh, Alpine Highlands, Cedar Hills, maybe American Fork are looking at doing something. So everyone is out there looking at doing something. And so in my mind, it would kind of be irresponsible for us just to see what happens. And in my mind, and this is probably not politically correct, but I don't just want to wind up being the leftover district. I want to proactively decide what makes the most sense for our communities. And then we'll try and go that direction. And I don't know what the answer to that is, but that would involve discussions, conversations, and what does make the most sense for our communities. And then as city leaders, make sure that we lead towards what we think will be the best. And when I say what will be the best, I'm saying this is not just about, this is like an earthquake that just occurred. So here we are. So let's look out over the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years and say what makes sense. What absolutely, and even regardless of some of the finance issues, just from a structural issue, what should these school districts look like, 20 years from now? But anyway, I just think they're really important conversations to have because they're gonna happen whether we're involved or not. So since they affect our future, I think we should be involved.
And to Lene's point, next Tuesday's a big day, right?
It is, yeah. They're gonna narrow it down to 2. And frankly, my approach has always been, unfortunately, maybe it wasn't always communicated in the newspaper that way, but my approach has always been to partner with Alpine. The best outcomes come when everybody's talking and on the same page. Now, I just got off the phone with a board member on the way here and made that comment, and she says, well, that's a great aspiration to have, right after their meeting yesterday, just with the board. But I really,
somewhat.
yes, they were
split
very
themselves.
divided, right, Cole? I don't wanna say divided, but a lot of opinions and great debate going on there. But also, I thought that debate was very healthy in the sense that they said, we do not wanna put 6 options out to our public.
It's too confusing.
Yes,
Two,
we
maybe
want to
3.
lead out
Yeah.
with 2 I mean,
So that has changed, because in the past it said they would only have one on a ballot potentially. They're saying they might offer two.
I think the question is, I think they want to certify both and then maybe get behind one.
I
Is
think
that
they were gonna
cool? Is
wait
that
the 45-day period, public comment period.
Yeah, so
Just
that's
certify
why
both and
they're,
then wait and then decide.
yeah, that's the May 1st deadline is they want this 45 comment period to start. Do you want to talk about that, Jen? I mean,
I don't know what time because I've been graduating this week, but maybe. I did talk to Sarah Hackett yesterday, and that's basically what she said, we're gonna look at two options, we're gonna certify both, we're gonna have the public comment period for 45 days, and then at that point, we'll just make a decision on what to do.
Oh, you're at BYU, but you've been studying, it's not like you're at the Alpine School, but you.
Right.
You've spent the time to get a pretty good insight, it sounds like.
Trying to, yeah.
Good, thank
We
you.
connected with our LIndon Elementary SCC and Oak Canyon SCC, so that's what I'm getting at.
Do you have any insights from them that you think would be valuable for us to hear?
Most of the conversations that have been coming through have been, I think, Mayor, what you had said, the question of response, like reactive or responsive, and lots of questions regarding if they're leaning towards just a 2-district split recommendation. There's a lot of leaning towards that, so that would be option 3, as opposed to option 4. And so I also, speaking with board members and others, it's clear that there are conversations already going on, particularly in the West and in Lehigh, and then less formal, but more conversations going up North County. What's confusing is, how do you have more transparent conversations? You know, how is it, it's like, hey, what are you doing? What do you wanna do? How do you wanna do? And that doesn't seem right. You know, it seems better to have an open forum. Unfortunately, we don't have very many venues that allow city officials to have that kind of conversation, so then it leads to these conversations. So it would be awesome, I think, if somehow someone could lead out and invite in a way that would create space, having a delegate from these different municipalities to say, you know, if there's an interlocal agreement, the district could back down from it entirely and let the interlocal agreement try to lead out. And if that's the case, then all of our hands would be forced in some ways. And so it'd be kind of cool structurally.
All of our hands would have been played versus forced, we would have been proactive, right?
Exactly.
Well, and do you all agree, my sense has been in my conversations with the district staff and board is they almost would invite the cities to sort of.
To take it out of their hair.
Take it out of their, yeah.
Get that same, I didn't get that same vibe from all.
You're getting a vibe that they
I
want
think
to
that they're
set the
saying,
stage.
I think they're saying if we can get everybody on board, it would be better for the district to do it. And I don't know how that's gonna go. I think the West is still kind of tenuous that they're going to do something. So either the district will decide, let's split, and they'll get behind that, or they'll split themselves.
So what
the
what she-
complicating factor
Yeah.
is, interlocals provide an opportunity for just those municipalities to vote. A district-wide, proposition means everyone in the district votes.
Right.
So, you know, if we're doing these, conversations and, you know, my hope would be having the conversations, having the interlocals, and then having the district say, I endorse this, I support this. You know, because then we don't have the look that the
Us and
district's
them.
not, yeah, that
They
us
don't
and
want
them.
us and them.
We don't
can
want
go
that,
there.
yeah.
Steve, can you opine on the different voting? I've heard some, if the district gets it, it's a simple majority, but interlocals, each city has to carry. Am I getting confused there? Or do you know enough to opine on this?
Yeah, so as far as if it's done by interlocal agreement, say there's 3 cities that do enter into an interlocal agreement, then it would be the residents of those 3 cities.
And it has to be a majority in each city, does it not?
Yeah,
Not just a simple majority.
well,
I
actually,
thought it
let me
was simple.
qualify that, let me, I got it right
That's
here.
what I heard enough is dangerous on that part. And maybe you can, insight.
The same.
Okay, well,
I don't
let's be
know.
dangerous together, that's scary.
Let's see.
But going back to, I guess what, if I could clarify the district, I'm not saying the district wants to be out of the conversation or out of the recommendation. I think everyone, they're saying, let's all collaborate. But I think that what they indicated to me, Shane Farnworth, was if there's an interlocal on the ballot, we're just gonna pull off the ballot a recommendation. Is that still what they're saying?
Oh,
I think that there can be competing initiatives on that,
That's-
which is why they would,
Right.
but I don't know that that was their preference. I can't speak for them now.
And maybe the city
I
should
don't
say
know
the
that I
same
can
thing.
speak to
They-
that. I haven't spoken with enough folks.
And I think there's the worry that a district-wide, what I heard a couple board members express was worry that, well, if we put a recommendation, an option on the ballot, it has to go across all 14 cities. There's such disparate
Yes,
needs
yes.
and opinions across the 14 cities. Could we really get a unified answer? And one board member said, well, if it fails, that's a mandate that no one wants to split. And the other said, oh, no, that just means we didn't offer the right one.
Right,
Yeah.
And so,
It
It was
creates more
interesting to hear that
animosity, in my opinion,
yeah.
having lived it.
Now, I mean, the simplest would obviously be for, local agreements in terms of if it's gonna actually happen. I mean, to try and get an entire district, 14 cities. I mean,
It's-
it's possible, but it's so diluted and so many people wouldn't really even understand what was going on, I don't think. But anyway.
So how do we be proactive, Mayor?
Well, Steve's there, fine. Thanks, Steve.
Sorry, I didn't hear your question.
Okay.
But to answer Tom's question, so if it's done by interlocal agreement, it would have to be a majority vote of the voters within the proposed district boundaries, so not
Okay,
each,
thank you.
not each
Let's
city,
clarify.
but in total.
That's a good.
Just to vote.
And the Alpine, would it be the same thing for the school district as a whole?
No, I'll have to look at
And then- and then also-
it.
I wanna call Steve.
What's that?
You can have something from both the district and the city.
At the same time?
Do they both have to have a majority and, then what happens if they
I'll
both
put that
pass?
question in the queue.
So how do we be
Hey, don't let her
proactive?
jump my question.
So
So how do we be proactive? I mean, we're talking about interlocal agreements, and I've heard that other cities are doing, so what do we do? What do we do? How do we go down that path?
Like, I think step one is to find out something on Tuesday,
some-
right?
So that doesn't necessarily, all that does is indicate where they are.
Yeah, but it
Um,
teaches us something about economies of scale and where they see the growth is and all those kind of things.
Which interestingly enough, since you brought that up, someone sent me an article about once you get at 30,000 students, the economies of scale is just, it doesn't matter after that. So we would be PG, LIndon, Orem,
Would be
Vineyard would
almost
be
60.
27,000.
Okay. And the whole east side's about 60.
Yeah, so, but that would be the Tuesday thing. I mean, what's Tuesday? We can wait, right? But, the Tuesday, I think is just, they're just trying to help the discussion by narrowing it down. That's the impression I got.
So to answer Dave's questions, could we do to be proactive to go forward? It would be, see what happens on Tuesday. And
Lehigh, what Lehigh's, I mean, I think a lot of people want to see.
Yeah.
So
Which
there's
way they
something
lean.
about-
we'll have what happens
So-
on Tuesday. We'll also have, we should start to understand what's happening with AI pretty soon.
But there's also a deadline, I mean, timing wise.
That's why the district's doing May 1st, because they've got the 45
45
day.
day.
So we do have to, by May, I don't know, it seemed like May 15th was kind of a buzzword I heard, but.
So
then I
does
heard
anyone
June.
know what the actual deadline is to put in a local agreement on the ballot?
With the proper noticing and all.
Sorry, Mayor, what was that?
Does anyone know what the actual deadline is? I've heard like May 1st, May 15th.
In terms of how
July
much
1st.
time the county needs to
In
be
other
able
words,
to
if
put it on the ballot?
if someone wants to put it in a local agreement on the ballot, what is the drop dead date to make that happen?
Yeah, so there's a lot of different time periods. It's kind of a timeline. I think we'd have to create a timeline and work it back and figure out what that date would be.
Okay, so maybe we can do some research on that.
Yeah.
Because as far as to answer Dave's question, how do we do something about it? We need to understand the timeline. We need to see
Get the financials.
what some of these other people are doing. We need to get the financials. And then we just need to have conversations. Is this something we're interested in? Is this something we're not interested in?
Can I add one thing?
Yes.
That I did Saturday, so at the convention. Great opportunity to talk to legislators, right, because they're all there. I approached one of them, because this is a concern that I came up in Prop 2, is the teachers, the tier 1 retirement teachers, right? I asked one of the legislators, can we get some legislation, can you start working on this in the interim sessions? That will protect that, give us some funding in case of, reconfiguration, give us some funding to protect the promises that were made to those tier 1 teachers. In my opinion, that's what we can do as elected officials, is continue with that narrative to our state officials. You know, that's a big concern, and I get it. They've been working 20 years, you know, they want to have that assurance. We need to take out some of the fear, that the unknowns, and it is an unknown because it depends on the board of the new district and what they decide. So why not, let's backfill some of that. And the legislator that I asked actually said, well, I don't know how many of those individuals there are. Good answer, good question, right? Let's find out, let's see what the cost would be and see if we can, it can't be that expensive. You know, maybe it is, but I just, compared to some of our budgets we have, but I don't know, I think there's a lot of conversations we can be having that will bring peace to this discussion. It needs to be about the teachers, it needs to be about the students, it needs to be about our neighborhood schools and our busing and what are the, you know, all of these conversations that were had and gratefully so that we're tuned into. Anyway, that was just an idea that I had over the weekend, and the group that was talking to this legislator seemed, you know, very in support of that.
And I know a lot of people bring up the Canyons Jordan split and how tough that was, and maybe in a friendly way. I think all of our goal here with this would be collaborative, that there would be opportunities to allow each entity, whatever it may be, to thrive, not leave any winners and losers in that situation. Some of the legislators mentioned, one of the legislators mentioned to me that there was some legislation passed recently that allows kind of interlocal sharing of resources among districts to be a little bit easier, clarification of, you know, how assets are determined and apportioned. And so I think that's something they felt was a statewide need to lay that groundwork. It's not just targeting here, but so those are all maybe some new things that would be helpful.
Yeah, that latest bill that went through clarifies a lot of that. That's where a lot of that came from. So we've only got 10 more minutes. We want to catch these other things, but it sounds to me, unless there's other ideas, the communication is a key here. I mean, to the extent that, I mean, the school district kind of became a taboo conversation. And that's not the best outcome for anyone. And so I think we just need to keep the conversation going. I don't know where that conversation goes, but I think we figure out our timelines. We figure out, you know, what other people are doing, but we just start to communicate and talk about it.
And I believe Cedar Hills is gonna host another meeting. Just
Tomorrow?
Yes, I believe so. So kind of getting elected officials together. Obviously, we can't form quorums and be making legislative decisions, but there's discussing the new MGT draw and that information. So
Is that Cedar Hills City Council or is that,
I think they're just hosting.
they're just hosting it?
Yeah.
Okay, because I think the more cities that get involved in the conversation and the more you're likely to have people not just left out in the cold and, you know, get what the best thing is for their city, so.
And I actually, so like, we should all listen to that recording from yesterday.
You said you were gonna set up the link. Would you
I can
do
do
that,
that.
please?
Mhm.
And then maybe, Brian, you could forward it on to the LIndon folks.
Okay.
Thank you. How long is it, just for?
It's over an hour.
Okay, but it's one safety speed, it's not so
It's
bad.
just it's a work meeting of school board members.
On the gym?
Yeah, it's good while you're in the gym.
No, you're gonna be entertained, Tom, it's good.
They're usually good though.
It really is. I was very impressed that they were asking the hard questions of each other.
Did you have something, Steve?
I was just gonna circle back and answer the other question.
Thank
So
you, Steve.
If it is a school district initiated split, then it's only approved if the majority of voters within the proposed new school district boundaries approve, as well as the majority of the existing school district voters approve. So it could be kind of two parts.
Yeah. Okay.
Wow. So
You
it's
vote
got a
twice?
double-
How do you do that?
No,
It's just,
it's the one splitting off has to have a majority and the total has to have a majority too.
total of the existing has to.
The big one can't say, we're tired of you, we're getting rid of you, because if they don't say yes, it backfires.
So.
Oh, they tally,
that's-
okay.
Yeah,
That's-
two separate
Two separate
majorities.
tallies.
That's kind of wild though.
Yeah.
It's wild.
No one can ever get out if the rest wanted to keep them in.
Well, no, that's not quite true. So that we're talking about a school district initiated split.
Versus a interlocal,
But if
versus
the,
an
yeah,
interlocal.
but if interlocal and two communities decided they wanted to split, then it only takes majority of the voters within those interlocal entities.
And that may be why I got that sense that they were saying if the city leaves out, they would defer to allowing that to happen.
Because they want that city to make the decision.
But what it does do is it makes it difficult to get a school district initiated split.
Yeah,
Say that one more time.
It makes it more difficult to get a school district initiated split approved, much easier to get an interlocal
Which is why the school district says,
split.
please,
Do
handle it, right?
Okay.
Mayor, I think that's what you were alluding to. We'll find out.
We'll find out.
okay, well, unless anyone else has any last thoughts, we'll just move on these last two things really quickly, so we'll get you out of here. Any other, does everyone think that's a good path to go down? Okay, okay, we'll do everything we can to facilitate that and keep that going.
Fire and EMS, we just had a fantastic presentation by Chief Sanderson and
How is that possible?
I'm done. When was that?
You see it every week, what are you talking about?
Was that?
Chief, do you wanna just give the elevator version to our council on how the
Yeah.
conversation went?
Yeah, highlights for the fire department, things are very exciting right now. It's really ramped up the last 2 years based off of the mayor's challenge and the council's support and us being the very best fire department in the state. With our operating guidelines, standard operating guidelines, with our truck manual, our engine manual, we're fighting fire and providing EMS at a standard that isn't seen in the communities within the state. Specifically, our paramedic squad, our critical care squad, we've taken all the services that you see Lifeline and Airbed fly above us with.
People pushing cars into houses, you go to those too,
Yeah,
right?
we go to those, and even to that point, we were called down to Provo with our critical care squad to help 4 respiratory therapists at a long-term facility intubate and manage the airway of a patient because of the capabilities we have. And so other communities are recognizing that level of service. And we had an amazing, like the mayor said, presentation. We had identified through that, there was some really good discussion based off of our contract moving forward. And the fees associated with that contract. And we brought that back to the table so everybody's aware. And we're in the process currently of coordinating a meeting, including Brent and Adam in the next week to go through those finances, address the issues and concerns that were brought up. And I think we'll come to a really good solution that we'll all agree with, that will maintain the relationship and the partnership that is amazing. And the partnership with not only LIndon, but Vineyard now, you all, I don't know if you noticed, but last night they approved a independent item, $1.7 million, not to exceed a residential fire facility that they anticipate building and having us in their community within the next 9 to 12 months. So that then provides additional resources to Orem and LIndon, and then for the needs of multiple calls in either of our jurisdictions, it's just, again, enhancing our abilities. So, awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, so looking at the increased requests, I mean, it's a little bit of a big request. And so just understanding, what was all involved with that was really important to see. And appreciate the ongoing discussions to really fine tune, maybe where there's some value we feel that we were bringing with our building and facility in those numbers, we get to a good spot.
For sure.
Yeah, no, I can't say enough good about our fire department. As Chief Sanderson said, we made a challenge to all the departments in the city to be the best in the state and actually do best practices and lead out and just show everyone else the best way to do it. And to start that out, we started with our fire department because we felt like they were the furthest along that path to start with. And so Chief Sanderson's done a phenomenal job in embracing. So it's not just a talking point. We expect Orem to be the best fire department in the state, and that will directly be a huge benefit to Vineyard. So we're happy for the partnership. Okay, Transportation, item 3.4. I just have one random, really quick thing on that. This would just be an example of something that we can keep collaborating on. That sweet burrito, is that on?
Sweet.
2,000 south, they're 200
It's
south.
right on your,
They're 200 south.
anyway, it's right on your border.
Yes.
And so we've got some issues because so we don't wanna have any of our projects, essentially have a parking lot on the street. In other words, they should be self-sustaining and have the parking within the property, right? And anytime there's an opening for parking on the street, a lot of times that seems to happen for a variety of reasons. And so the project that's being proposed on there, we wanna make sure that our border doesn't become a parking lot. And so we're gonna do things on our side to make that, protect that from happening, but we'll be reaching out to you to see what you can do also. Just to, because it's.
If you don't know, something's been approved on our side, if you can.
Meters probably saw that.
Sweet burrito, okay.
You're gonna make sure there's enough parking required.
Enough parking required, and then make it so that they're not allowed to park on the street outside of those
For
properties.
convenience.
But we'll need your help to do it on your side, otherwise they'll all go across to your side.
They'll play whack-a-mole all the way.
On that same road, we appreciate that, we appreciate that, it's, because there's a lot of neighborhoods around there that could be impacted by that. And we're excited to see something happen there, when I first moved to LIndon 32 years ago, and that was the old Allen's grocery store, it was the only game in town.
Right.
And it's been this closed down building, and the Worthingtons, I'm glad, they had that Neaters. Neaters was supposed to be in LIndon because they're Lindonite. We'll agree to anything, we can just annex that.
You don't really want the property, you just want the tax revenue.
God bless the bread pudding.
If you could have the community, whether it's over that, talk to, this is my phone, some leaving home, grab the room. So just be concerned there that if you're asking us to prohibit parking in front of our own businesses on their side of the street, that
Yeah,
that is a conflict.
no, we wouldn't be asking for that, we're just trying to keep, there's several there's an office building there that would potentially want to park on that street instead of in the parking lot. So, but we can look at the details and just optimize it the best we can do.
Sure, and that same road, if you continue east, as you know, the Linden Temple is coming in. And we've had a lot of residents speak to us about the concern, obviously Orem that's gonna be their temple too. Part of some people there.
northeast side,
Yeah, and so just the traffic, just the nature of how that played out, that, now people have to traverse, if they're say coming from that Heather Ridge Road at the top, and then come down and go through our neighborhoods or our Center Street. 2000 North has two pinch points, you have the Murdoch Canal Trail. Sometimes a lot of people the bicyclists and stuff are zooming across there, and the traffic's just going to increase there. And so we've had residents come forward and say, could you do something there at the Murdoch Canal Trail to mitigate, create a little bit better safety? And I know there's been certain things in there. And then further up east, where that Heather Ridge Road comes and people turn down, I know our staff reached out to yours about, had some residents suggesting.
That's by your elementary school?
Further east,
Further east or?
up the hill.
Oh, up the hill, yep, I know, thank you.
So where the hill is probably the steepest, people
Yep.
can really start to catch
Accelerate.
going, they accelerate. By the time they're crossing Murdoch Canal, they're going 40.
Is
Not
that
25.
northeast, you want a stop sign?
So we've had some residents recommend a four-way stop.
Cause there's a two-way right now, right?
Yeah, just for those that are, coming
North
from the
and
south
south.
and the north. And so creating a four-way stop there keeps people from, collecting momentum
Yeah.
towards the Murdoch Canal Trail, but also those people coming out of those neighborhoods, there's gonna be more traffic trying to maybe come to the temple.
Get out.
At the same hours, people are trying to come to the schools.
Right.
It's true. We have several schools. And so it's just gonna create kind of a crunch time. So four-way stop will give them better ability to get onto that road.
So Tyler, do you know, like, put a stoplight, what kind of volumes do you need for that?
Stop sign first, the warrants for stop signs would Not a stoplight, but.
Mayor, you may not recall, Orem's engineers actually did a study on this intersection. So cool.
With the added traffic
But
and
what we're, I'm talking about the anticipation.
now, in the future, I mean, I'm assuming it's gonna double.
Just recently, yeah, so currently warrants are not met, but the anticipation of, you're building that project down there at the bottom of the hill, we have, you know, the temple traffic that will start.
No, that, you're gonna definitely see an increase.
That's 18 months out. too.
As our engineering group goes through that, they'll review, I think we can reevaluate all of that, take that into consideration.
And if you could take into consideration slowing the traffic as it approaches the Murdoch Canal as well down that hill. Maybe that stop sign could help with that as well as part of.
It's a good benefit.
Well, they put big speedboats.
Speed tables. Seriously, they don't like them.
No, no.
Mark doesn't like it.
That will be our first physical activities, we chip them up.
All right.
Okay, so Mayor, we'll take all that and give it to our traffic team and have them work directly with you guys to see what, it'll probably be a multi-year approach, but it's something we definitely just want to take into account.
Yeah, the temple will be opening next year, so we'd love to be proactive instead of reactive.
Do you have a scheduled date that they'd announced? Yeah.
Just
They
next
keep
year,
that
maybe
option.
around this time-ish, yeah.
They're
Start
very
building.
tight-lipped with that.
They don't like to do open houses in January, February, so my guess is it pushes a little bit.
Okay, so
We would love the open
so-
house to be after school lets out, but we don't know for sure. Yeah.
So it made it on this list and that means it's gonna.
Trent is the doorman.
The city manager's department needs to follow the fire department, be the best. I stiff competition with Adam Cowie, he does a great job for you guys.
The council, any other transportation? I think 1600 North UDOT is, that's gonna be widening, you know, here.
Ryan, do you want to share kind of high-level timeline on 1600 North widening between State Street and I-15?
Yes. Taking notes on the two trail crossings, we're talking about those, but let me recharge the brain. They're in the process of purchasing right of way right now. I'm sure you're all aware of that. I think they're hoping to start construction next spring. Hopefully we can get right away locked up.
They're little past 30% design.
Yes. Yes, 30% design, so maybe it's next summer they start, but it's all dependent on right of way purchases.
And funding that's earmarked or just future funding?
UDOT has assured us that they will find the rest of the funding that they need to do the project.
It's been a very elusive project, but it's finally coming together.
Yeah.
So we can try and get the timing, they don't necessarily have money,
Right.
wait.
Yeah,
We
no,
can try and get
we're-
the timing so that construction starts right when the temple opens.
Yeah, that's perfect, that's how that works.
And the school's still in session.
The schools.
Yeah.
Wow, and you're not the city planner, you're the one.
So we haven't get around to that on Geneva Road with the Orem temple. Yeah. So we'll shut Geneva Road down until possibly this fall to get the temple time open. Yeah, so.
Good for you.
You got that work with you sometimes.
All right, any other thoughts, comments?
To my knowledge, this is the first one of these we've had before in the city.
We appreciate it.
We
Thank
got
you very much.
together.
We got together.
I
before.
missed it for whatever
Fair
reason. So,
Yeah.
thank you though, this has been great, thank you. It's good to meet you.
Yeah.
Next time we'll have your pictures
We
up
should do
there.
this more.
We saw your campaign posters, but now we can see faces.
I noticed your campaign picture didn't have a beard.
Good catch.
I feel like we should maybe do a quick picture together. I'm all about doing pictures.
Right on that
Where's
dice.
Pete? Pete,
Hey,
get
can
your
we-
camera.
Oh, yeah, I just wondered, you wanted to go.
We can go up on the dice if you want.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's,
It says organized.
Oh, we got the.
let's go ahead and adjourn.
Okay, I move we adjourn,
And
Mr.
then
Mayor.
we'll go take a quick.
Do you need a motion, look for adjournment?
Sure.
I'll second, yeah.
Aye.
Aye.
Nobody ever votes against that.
We're exactly right.